New timelines are landing, new timelines are manifesting, new timelines are available to you, and it's important to remember that you have the choice. You actually have the ability to choose what reality you want to experience. Now, for years and years and years, maybe even decades, you've been kind of riding in autopilot based on your traumas, your beliefs, your ego trying to keep you safe, keeping you limited, and you've just kind of been skirting along the path that was familiar and comfortable to you, and you were stuck in a timeline that was really manifesting the same day over and over again, turned into the same weeks, same months, same years, and ultimately nothing changes in your life. Well, now you are awakening to the fact that you are a sovereign being, you are conscious, you can make choices that affect how you move forward in reality, essentially what timelines you choose to align with, to experience. Now, we're on this ascension timeline, right? And if you're watching this video and if you've subscribed to my channel, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button now. But if you've been with me for a while, you know that this timeline is all about awakening. It's got its twists, it's got its turns, it's got its curves, and shadows or aspects of you are going to rise up to give you an opportunity to stay on that course, right? Think about the ego and the traumas. They come forward to try to lure you back into a lower frequency timeline, right? Like really just making you feel safe, making you feel comfortable. But the key on this ascension path is to start leaning into the unknown, into the uncomfortable, and breaking out of the old patterns, because those old patterns really no longer serve you. They are the patterns that are responsible for you living the same unfulfilled, feeling stuckness life that you've been living for a long, long time. Well, this now is the opportunity. The door is opening for you to finally step out of that. And more people are starting to do that. People that I work with on a day-to-day basis are starting to leave the old behind, and they're starting to step into new realities, higher frequency timelines, and opportunities that they weren't able to see or perceive before are now starting to come into view. That's simply because of a frequency change. When you change your frequency, you raise your vibration, you step into a higher frequency reality or a higher vibrational timeline. And with that new timeline comes new opportunities, things that align with you. You feel it in your being, you feel it in your heart, and you start to feel more fulfilled. You start to feel a little bit more excited. You start to have a clear sense of direction and purpose in your life, which is to continue along this ascension timeline, this path, right? We're going like this. Now, you're going to have plenty of opportunities to come back down to where you were, that we call the healing process, right? And in order to see where we're going and get a sense that we're advancing and our vibration is increasing, we need to experience those old aspects of us that were keeping us anchored to a lower frequency timeline. So you may be getting triggered, you may be feeling stuck, you may be feeling a little spiritually depressed, you may be feeling some grief as well. And that's really interesting, because as we move away from the control of these old aspects of us, we can start to feel grief for a little bit of a loss of not being in that familiar energy, that familiar situation, you know, the one that's been manifesting the days over and over again with little or no change, the very thing you're trying to escape, right? Well, you need to be able to experience those old aspects so that you know, I don't want to go back there, right? If you don't see it, it's very easy to slip back into those patterns and those behaviors unconsciously and just keep reliving the same patterns over and over again. But as you continue to go like this on this ascension path, this higher frequency timeline, the old is going to continue to rise up. It's really a validation in knowing that you can actually see who you were, and where you're going. That is so, so important. A lot of people want to just leave that old behind and never look back, but we need it from time to time so that we can know that we are consciously making choices to not go back to the old. The old patterns want to shrink you back into that box, and that box is very limiting. That's the box where maybe you weren't confident, you didn't feel worthy, you didn't feel capable of being loved, you didn't feel like you could really fulfill yourself. Well, now you're starting to get into the energy of fulfillment and gratitude and joy and peace and love and those types of higher frequency emotions. Well, the old pops up from time to time to show you that in fact you are moving in the right direction, right? You see, you observe, but you don't go back there, right? Just kind of sticks its head up and says, we're here, and you're not coming back. You're continuing to advance. So as you shift into higher frequency timelines, opportunities that were kind of always there, they were just not on your radar, start to present themselves. Things start to align with you. Things that you could take inspired action towards and actually start to feel a sense of purpose or feel a sense of fulfillment. Now, here's a secret for you. Everybody's out there looking for their purpose. What am I here to do, right? That's a 3D concept. Really, what you're here to do is to raise your vibration and reach or step up into higher frequency realities. That is your purpose. You're here to ground consciousness. And when you do that, you elevate into higher dimensional fields. So maybe think a little bit less about what my purpose looks like in terms of what am I supposed to be doing day in and day out? Because here's the thing. You could be adjusting that or modifying that day in and day out and feeling very fulfilled, very complete, very energized, very motivated. And the thing that you're doing today may look very different from what you were doing yesterday, but energetically, they are very much on the same frequency. That is really called, just like being in the flow state, being aligned with your purpose. Your purpose is to continue on this ascension timeline, and that again means experiencing that old. That's that validation that, okay, I am moving forward, because as much as I feel and see that old me pop up, maybe you get triggered, right? And the old you pops up, you're choosing consciously not to go back into that, not to become that old version. It's there. You could see it, kind of putting your arm around it, and you're saying, thanks, but no thanks. Come along with me. I have a better way now. And you continue to remain in the flow, you remain aligned, and your frequency continues to elevate. You start to open up into higher frequency realities. You start to connect with your guides more. You start to become more intuitive, right? You start to maybe connect with deceased loved ones, right? When we lose somebody here in the physical, we could feel a sense of grief, because that grief is tied to that old person, that old aspect of us that had that person in that reality. And when you align with that, if you're grieving from the loss of somebody, you are cutting yourself off from their energy, which resides now on a higher frequency timeline, in a higher frequency reality. So what do you want to do? Do you want to dive back in there and become that old you that's filled with grief? Or do you want to allow yourself to acknowledge that grief, feel it, put your arm around it, love it, and continue to elevate, raise your vibration into a higher frequency reality where the very person that you lost in the physical resides. Now they're up here energetically, and all of a sudden you have the ability to open up and connect with them. Same thing happens with your guides. That's what happens. That's why you're here. You're here to continue to ascend. That is your purpose. We do that by creating that space within the body. We do that by feeling and experiencing all of the old aspects of you, soul fragments that were keeping you lower in a lower 3D reality. We feel it all, we reclaim it all, we become more whole, and when you do that, that space is created, more of your higher self can land, your vibration raises, you elevate into higher frequency realities and timelines, and the multidimensional you comes online. That Merkaba, the light body, starts to activate. You start to have amazing multidimensional experiences. Maybe that's a connection with those deceased loved ones, your guides, or your star family, your ET guides. They can very well start to come forward, because now you're at a frequency where they can manifest more into your experience, right? Because you're on that ascension timeline. What you're doing today may have looked a little different from what you did yesterday. That doesn't matter. You're continuing to elevate. That is what is important. That is your purpose. Each and every day, your purpose is to create space within your body, expand your consciousness. We do that by allowing ourselves to feel and experience that old dense energy, all of those traumas, all of those things that, yeah, you want to avoid, you want to distract yourself from, you want to run from, right? Well, you allow yourself to feel that, but you don't become it. You don't dive into it. You see it, you observe it, you feel it, and you bring it back into the party. You bring it back into the heart space, and you create that space, attract more of your higher self, frequency rises, more of the multidimensional you, that new you, starts to come online. If you're feeling like you're stuck and just can't get over this process, you just don't know what to do, you're feeling lost, I am going to be opening back up for coaching now, one-on-one coaching. I've got a link in the description. You could jump on that wait list. I would do so very, very quickly. And if you have not yet signed up for my 5-day Break the Pattern Challenge, go ahead and do that. There's a link in the description.